I would like to thank Erik Espinosa and Espinosa Cigars for not only sponsoring this alongside Cigar Aficionado, but also sponsoring our opening party. They've been a great partner and a great brand. Have a lot of fun every time I go to Miami and see Erik playing dominoes and smoking cigars in their warehouse. So really great partners. Also, Cigar Aficionado, helping tell the story of the premium cigar industry. Dave has been incredible along with his team in promoting not only the industry but the association. So I'd like to welcome on stage Dave Savona, the editor-in-chief of Cigar Aficionado.
Thank you, Josh. Hello, everybody. Nice to be back here at PCA in New Orleans. Appreciate you all coming out. One of the cool aspects of my job is I get to meet some very interesting people that we put on the cover of Cigar Aficionado magazine. And the idea today is for us to have a little conversation so you can go beyond the pages and learn more about somebody who's very well known to you, but we're going to kind of find out a little bit more about this guy's story, and he has a fantastic story to tell. You know him from the Food Network. You know him from the hit show Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. He's a true cigar aficionado. Please give a warm PCA welcome for Guy Fieri. Guy, thanks for being here.
Look at all these people having a blast in New Orleans smoking cigars. I was dying, right? I was dying. We were just in New York shooting a show, or shooting a PSA for Tunnel to Towers. I don't know if you know of that foundation. Amazing. Do you know about it? If you don't, please find out about it. It's one of the most amazing groups you ever meet in your life. And my good buddy Dave said, we have an event today. I said, today? I said, I think it's tomorrow. He goes, don't, I won't use the F word. Don't fudge with me. It's today. Tell me you're going to be on time. I'm like, dude, we're getting on the plane right now. I'm going to be there at 5. It's at 4. It's at 4.
This is a true story, by the way. It gave me more gray hairs, which I don't need.
This went on for a while. So anyhow, thank you very much for having me. This is actually kind of surreal for me, being a big cigar fan for, I can't even tell you how many years, but the fact that I got invited to do this, I think that somebody must have just canceled their ticket. So thanks for having me, Dave.
Well, Guy, we all know you from TV. We know what you do. We know your personality. But I want people to get to know more about the real Guy Fieri and how this all came about. So we're going to start by going back a little bit. Take me back to growing up
in San Quentin. So I was born in San...
Take me back to growing up in Ferndale, California. Tell us a little, what's Ferndale like? What kind of a town is Ferndale, California?
Well, Ferndale wasn't the cigar intervention. The cigar was from my grandfather, Gramps, Henry Price, who was an attorney for the Navy. And Gramps smoked White Owls and Tiparillos. So, right? White Owl and Tiparillo fans, I can tell. You're all 6 of you are here. No, but my Gramps smoked cigars. And none of my cousins, I mean, everybody's like, Gramps always smells. You know, Gramps has that little... To me, it was always this, that's a Gramps smell. And even when my Gramps died when I was like 10 or 11, and we lived on the West Coast, so we weren't with him in North Carolina, it always had that reminiscent smell. You know, smell is actually the olfactory that brings us to our memory the most. Believe it or not, it's what reminds you of things the most is a smell. And I don't know, I was probably about 16, 17. I think Swisher Sweets is what I was smoking back in the day. And I just got into cigars more and more and more. But that was where the real love and passion came from. And people were, you know, oh, you're smoking cigars because you're trying to be cool. No, I smoke cigars because I loved them. And I told you, you know the story because we did this 4-hour interview and 2 bottles of tequila and 6 cigars. It was my downtime. It was my mellow out time. And that's kind of where it all started.
You graduated, though, pretty quickly from the Tiparillos, the Swishers, the machine-made cigars. You discovered premium cigars, handmade cigars.
Wait a second, they're machine-made? Damn. I knew I missed something. Yeah, no, what it was, so I graduated college, And I was always buying cigars, and again, buying them the wrong place, the wrong way, the wrong time. Anybody tells me that they don't like cigars, I'll usually say, okay, tell me why you don't. Well, I smoke cigars when I golf with my buddy. Does he drag them out of his bag from the last time you guys smoked? You're smoking a dog turd. You're smoking some dried up piece of stuff. We're told we're not allowed to cuss. So I'm really editing myself. But so it was about that, and then I graduated college, and I didn't have a lot of money. I made $22,000 coming out of college in running restaurants, and I didn't know anybody in the town I lived in. So on Monday was my one day off, and I would ride my bike. Why is your seat higher than mine? Because mine feels like someone took the springs out of it, and I feel like I'm stuck in some stoner's beanbag. Anyhow. So I'd ride my bike to this cigar shop in Naples, which is a little area in Long Beach, California, and I would spend my $22,000, and I would buy cigars, and I would smoke a different cigar every Monday. And this guy would kind of walk me through, and I'd say, okay, what am I smoking today? And my favorite cigar, still one of my favorite cigars, was the Hoyo de Monterrey Excalibur Maduro. And I just got immersed into it. And the cool thing about it was, which I've said a million times, and it's kind of what we're all doing here today, doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, what you do, what you like in sports or music or politics or whatever, everybody that loves a great cigar loves to sit around and shoot the stuff and, have a good hangout and just engage. And that was how it started.
I remember you telling me a story about hanging out in the cigar shop, one of the cigar shops that you used to frequent, and you spoke about the power of listening, especially listening to some of the older people who are in the shop. You talk about that, what you learned there?
Well, they didn't know who I was. I was definitely a little kid in their opinion, and I'm just looking at these people and I'm going, I have no idea. The one guy I talked to the most was a garbage truck driver, and he was one of the most prolific. He told me, you can learn a lot from somebody's garbage, by the way. I mean, watch the stuff you throw away. I mean, there's a lot of evidence. But I just sat there and talked to people, and one guy was a dentist, one guy was a doctor, one guy was a truck driver, one guy was unemployed. I mean, there's all kinds of people. And you sat there, and it was a communion. It was just like this really cool hang of really just awesome people. And actually, I was so sad that I lost track with all of them, including the garbage truck guy, Larry. But it was this downtime. And it was, for me at the time in my life, at 22 years old, it was the only people I knew in the community. And it was all centered around cigars. And the guy, Mike, that owned the cigar shop was the greatest guy. I remember the first time that I smoked, it wasn't a Cuban. No, the first time I had a Hoyo de Monterrey, it was a double Corona. And I had, I think it was like $100. And I sat there and smoked it to the end, when you pinch it or you put the pick in it. And I'm like, this is like drinking a bottle of Jack. I mean, this is crazy. Or a bottle of Santo. And I was just in love with it from that. And then I read Paul Gamarian's book. I built my first humidor. I realized that humidification and proper storage of cigars is probably one of the biggest mistakes that's happened in the cigar world. And I just got into it, man, and that was it. And so from then on, the whole story, I was, the word's not addicted, I was in love with cigars.
Let's just take a step back for a second here, because you're loaded with confidence, loaded with charisma. Where's that come from, guy? Were you always like that? Were you like that as a little kid? Did it come from family? Did it come from
Tequila?
It comes from tequila.
I told him every question he asked me, he has to take a shot. There you go, Dave.
Come on, Dave. All right, cheers, everybody.
See, more applause than when the two of us walked out here is when Dave takes shots.
By the way, this happened. This is how it happened when we met at the cover shoot. The guy walks in, takes out a bottle of tequila. He's pouring shots for the photographer, for me, everybody on the team. It turned into quite the party. Kind of. Were you always like this guy? Were you always the life of the party? Where are you going, guy?
This chair's way better. That one sucks. Yeah, no, I was always a handful. My parents, this is a true statement. My mom makes it all the time. She says, when your dad and I got married, we wanted 10 kids, and then we had you, and we were done. But they did have my sister. But no, I was always a little bit of a hellion, and not in a bad way. I mean, I just live life. I want 25 hours out of the day. I want 368 days a year. I mean, I don't want to burn 1 minute. And my wife says you need to sleep more. You need to take it easy. I'm like, sleep when I'm dead. I want to get after it. I miss you. We seem so far apart.
This is
but this is a
terrible.
great chair, and that one is horrible.
What about food? What was the food like in your household, and how did that inform you and turn into a career centered in a lot of ways around food?
Speaking of horrible, the food in my house when I was a child. No, my parents are both really good cooks, but my parents were hippies, not dope-smoking hippies, by the way. I have to say that. My mom's like, don't say we were hippies and then have everybody think that we were following the dead. No, my dad was out of the Navy. My mom was a school teacher. It was the 60s. They didn't want to live I was born in Columbus, Ohio, and they didn't want to live in Ohio. They moved to California. I was 6 months old. And we did it all. We ate it all. I mean, we were into macrobiotics. If it was steamed fish and broccoli and bulgur, that was what we ate. Nobody ever wanted to come to my house and have dinner. And I would go to people's houses, and I'm like, you make a whole loaf out of meat? What the? I go home and I'm like, they make a loaf of meat. I want to have that. And that was not what we were eating. We ate a lot of steamed fish. We ate a lot of steamed everything. But my parents were into healthy cooking, and it was great because it taught me a lot about cooking before I understood what I was going to do in cooking. But I was about 8 or 9 years old. My mom was making eggplant parmesan, and all I remember is coming around the corner and smelling it. When you smell frying flour, you know that smell, and I'm like, are we having chicken parmesan? And my mom says, no, we're having eggplant parmesan. And I said, well, could we just have chicken parmesan like the normal families? So after I woke up from getting hit with the frying pan, I'll be here all day. So anyhow, she said, if you don't like the way we cook, you can cook. And I was confident at 8 or 9, whatever it was. So I went to the grocery store in our town. It was kind of like the Waltons, if you remember the Waltons. Anybody? The Waltons? Good. That more applause than Dave got when he came out. No, I'm just giving you the shit I'm giving myself. They didn't give me the stuff. So I'm probably getting dock points. I'll have to leave a minute early. It was, you could go to the store, the grocery store, the Valley Grocery, and you could sign for it. So I went to the butcher, John Maselli, and I said, hey, John, I get to cook tonight. I want to eat some meat. What kind of meat do you, He's like, I think he gave me ribeye steaks. I said, what do you serve with this? And he said, pasta. He says, you're Italian. You guys eat pasta? I said, yeah, but we always eat green pasta. It was spinach pasta, hippie store pasta. And so anyhow, long story short, I cooked this dinner, and my parents came home from work. We had a little town of 1,400 people. And they come walking in the door, and there I am cooking a steak in a pan. And my dad's 6'3" in cowboy boots with a handlebar mustache, black hair, Italian. And he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, Mom said I could. And he looks at my mom, who's this beautiful redhead. She goes, I didn't think he would do it. So we sit down for dinner at the table, and I didn't know that, by the way, I didn't know that you cooked the pasta separate from the sauce. So I cooked all the pasta in the sauce. And I think it was like ragu or something. So I got this clumpy, messy pasta and the steak, and all I knew in my world was butter and soy sauce. That's the only thing we had. And so I put the steak in front of him, and man, it's not going good. And my dad takes a bite, and he sets his fork and knife down. And he looks at me. I'm dead. Because this might be the best steak I've ever had. And that was it. I'm like, hell yeah. Because in my family, if you cooked, you didn't have to do the dishes. I'm like, we're eating meat and I'm not doing dishes.
Here's to not doing the dishes. So that light the spark right there? Were you like, okay, we're off to the races?
Dave, I took it so far. I was so addicted to food. And not a big eater. I'm still not a big eater. You're wondering why I'm this petite 146 pounds. It's because, thank you very much for anybody that got that. No, I was so addicted to food. I loved food so much that I would walk from school. My parents we had horrible lunches at school. And my parents didn't make very good lunches either because my mom baked the bread and it was like floor of the earth bread. I mean, it was like this. There was pine cones in it and animal droppings. I mean, it was terrible bread. My mom was no baker. But at their little store in our town, to keep everybody working in their store, they would buy lunch meats and have great bread and all the stuff so the people that worked there would make their own sandwiches but stay working. So I would leave school at lunch, give up recess, to go up there because I could get a salami sandwich. And that's been my addiction. So I found the joy of cooking. Anybody have the Joy of Cooking cookbook? Yeah? One of you? Good. You can buy it. It's still available online. But the joy of cooking, and I open it up. I'm like, wait a second. They give you all the secrets? This is awesome. So I would fake being sick as a kid and stay home and cook. Just because I hated school. I was not a school, I mean, I eventually got through it, after my dad thought I was a doctor when I graduated high school. None of this is working. You guys are definitely not drinking enough. I gotta go. So no, anyhow, that was it, man. I was just addicted to food. I went to France. I was 16. I made myself an exchange student, which was a whole nother story. I think you know the story. But no, food was always the epicenter.
You saved some money from, didn't you sell pretzels as a young boy too at one point? You had some pretzels that were revelatory.
I sold a lot of things, Dave. I sold a lot of things.
Do tell, guy.
I was kicked out of the Kool-Aid business. I was 7. I had a thriving Kool-Aid business. I mean, I was so the little town that anybody ever see the movie Outbreak with Dustin Hoffman? Okay, same people that bought Joy of Cooking. Great. So, Outbreak with Dustin Hoffman is filmed in this little town called Ferndale, and it's up in Northern California, up by Eureka. It's the most angelic little town in the world. It's still one of my favorite places on the planet. Still have my home that I was raised in, and we do a lot of philanthropy up there. But so I had all kinds of businesses, but one was Kool-Aid. And tourists would come through, and who can't, a little kid that's selling Kool-Aid. I wasn't good at lemonade. The squeezing the lemon thing was way out of my, but you can just make good Kool-Aid, So my dad caught me with a purple arm. And he's like, why is your arm purple? And I said, because I'm making Kool-Aid. He says, you can't stir it with your arm. Where's the stick? I said, the dog ate it. He says, you're out of business. That's it. I'm closing down the Kool-Aid business. So anyhow, we would go skiing up in Tahoe, and the guy had a pretzel cart, and he sold these soft, doughy pretzels with salt on them. And I'm a salty, sour, spicy guy. I'm not a sweets guy. And that's when you would drop your kids off at the ski resort and give them $20 to get their lift ticket, and then whatever money they had left, they'd buy their lunch. My dad says, you had $5 for lunch. What did you have? I said, I had pretzel. He said, I give you $5. How many pretzels you had? I said, I had 10. He said, you had 10 pretzels? I said, have you had these things? They're amazing. He said, well, if you love them so much, why don't you start a pretzel? Again, I'm in 4th grade, okay? I'm in 4th grade. My dad was a huge entrepreneur, my biggest hero. I miss him. He's a great guy. And he said, why don't you start your own pretzel business? I said, okay. How do I do that? He goes, go ask the pretzel guy for the address of where he gets the pretzels. So I go down to Joey that I've been buying pretzels for a week. I said, hey, Joey, can I get the address for the pretzels? He says, why? And I said, well, I want to start my own pretzel business. He says, no, you can't have it. I said, why? And he says, because you're going to start your own pretzel business and you're going to put me out of business. I said, I'm in 4th grade, bro. Because, as my buddy Mikey Junta would say, because I'm in 4th grade. So my dad, I walk up defeated to the lounge, and my dad's like, bullshit. You go down there, and you wait for him to throw that box of that leftover pretzels away, and then you get that box and you bring it back to me. So I stake the guy out for about an hour. He throws the box away. I dumpster dive in my ski outfit into the dumpster in the snow. I get the box. I bring it up to the lounge, the whole box. You didn't have to bring the whole goddamn box up here. Tears the address off, and he says, go back. So for the next year, every day after school, I would go to my dad's buddy's shop, and I would build this pretzel cart on the back of a 3-wheel bike. And in 5th grade, I opened up, because in 5th grade, what word did you use the most? Awesome. So I opened up the awesome pretzel cart. And I sold pretzels from 5th grade till I was 15. I made $10,000. I saved all the money.
Wow.
$10,000 in 1982.
Wow.
Right? So I say, well, no, and it's not 10,000 because I saved it, because Lord knows I would have spent it on every BMX bike I could have ever bought. And my dad, I saved the money, and then I wanted to go to France. We had exchange students when I was a kid, and I wanted to go to France, but I didn't speak any languages. But we had exchange students, so I knew about other countries. And the long story short is my dad says, if you can go to the junior college, I was a sophomore in high school, if you can go to the junior college and you can learn to speak French, because you can learn in 1 year, right? So I went to the junior college. I passed the class with a B or better. And my dad's like, yeah, you can go to France. So I lived in a boarding house, went to France. And when I got to France, my head was blown off. I mean, it's kind of like the first time you smoke a great cigar that's perfectly humidified. When you meet Erik Espinosa, when you have that euphoric moment. And I'm like, that's it. I'm going to be a chef. I understand.
That's amazing. Pretzels lead. That's a great story. The drive to make that happen, and your dad empowering you, I absolutely love that. How do you go from, I know you opened a restaurant, you got the cigar patio, things are going great. Here comes Erik. Oh, with the light. We're going to get Erik up here in just a little bit. How do you go from having your own restaurant where you have a cigar patio, how do you get to become Guy Fieri, who everybody knows on the Food Network? How do you get on the Food Network? Takes more than pretzels.
Did you ever answer one of those late night ads? You too can be a Food Network star. What I learned when I first started smoking cigars, every great cigar has a great lighter. And I try to explain that to people all the time. Don't smoke it so fast that it doesn't go out. Be willing to not burn through it in 15, 20 minutes. Let it go out. Take the ash off it. Get a great lighter. A great lighter is the key. I don't know how you can get along with a Bic lighter. It does not work. It takes way too long. But a really good lighter and a great cigar go hand in hand. So it's funny. Did I tell you about the cigar patio at my first restaurant?
You told me, but I don't think you told the room. Let's talk about the cigar patio, because cigar patios weren't common when you opened a cigar patio.
So, was running restaurants in Los Angeles. So graduated college, smoked cigars down in Long Beach, did restaurants for other people. Always had this inspiration that I wanted to do my own restaurants, and I had a real vision about what I wanted to do in restaurants. And so when I opened my first restaurant called Johnny Garlic's, garlic is in all of our food. Every ethnicity of food has garlic. Garlic is in ketchup, all right? We love garlic. Don't give me this bad breath thing, especially in this room. Don't give me bad breath. So I opened up Johnny Garlic's, and I had a business partner, and he wasn't a cigar smoker. But I said, we had an outdoor patio, and I said, we're going to have the first, nobody had a cigar bar. And I'm like, why wouldn't you have a cigar bar? So I went to the local cigar shop in our town called The Squire. Linda, still a great friend of mine, up there in Santa Rosa, Northern California. And I said, can I buy some cigars? And can you sell them to me kind of at wholesale? And I had this little humidor that I made. I was always crafty. My dad, we were woodworking. We built our own home. We did all that kind of stuff. And so I had this humidor. And when people found out, I think people came to our restaurant more for the cigars than they did the food at first. And then they found out how eclectic my cooking style was. And then they still came back for the cigars. And thank you. My one guy up here, Espinosa, get him a cigar, please. He's my laugh track up front. So we would do this cigar bar. And the county and nobody even knew what to do because, like, is this legal? Is it not legal? But everybody that was from the county and from the city was smoking there anyway. So it went away for a long time. Like, people didn't pay attention for quite a while. But anyhow, so I was doing my restaurants, and I had like 5 or 6 restaurants at the time, and then this show showed up on the Food Network called The Next Food Network Star. And it was kind of like American Idol, but for food. And I hadn't watched 1 hour of the Food Network. And not that it's not a great station. I love the Food Network. They pay for my... No, it's really... The Food Network's been a life-changing experience, and more so not about me, but for what it does for my philanthropy. Philanthropy is my number one goal, honestly. My kids are set. They're great. They're moving on to their next levels, but philanthropy is really what I'm so excited about. But anyhow... And they said, you got to go on the show called The Next Food Network Star. And I'm like, that sounds like a really terrible idea. I've never been to culinary school. I think I'm a good cook, but I don't want to go on TV with a bunch of people that went to culinary school and got their whites on and they're all buttoned up and they're all tight-assed about it. I'm like, I don't want to do this. And everybody pushed me, no, you got to go, you got to go. Well, I've always been the guy in my life, and you know me now personally, that I push people. I always push people, like, go make a better self, go make yourself better and go to your next level. And so my wife came home one day and said, hey, I was just listening to a radio show and they were talking about that Food Network Star thing. She goes, you should go do that. You'd be great at that. I'm like, okay, well, it's like going to happen right now, and we're 8 months pregnant with our second son. And she's like, do it. Blah, 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 blah. Finally, I make the demo tape and I send it in. The demo tape was so ridiculous. Have you ever seen the demo?
I have not seen the demo tape. We should
It
put
is
that on our
so
website.
ridiculous. And I made it ridiculous so they wouldn't pick me. But I guess when you make it that ridiculous, they pick you. Hi, I'm Guy Fieri, and I'm here in the wine country. And today I'm going to make you a delicious sausage and tofu terrine. And I'm going to serve that over a mildly poached ostrich egg. And because we're in the wine country, I'm going to serve that over grape nuts. And I'm going to top that off with a delicious pickled herring mousse. That was the intro.
This is really it? This is it?
1,000%, that's exactly what I said. And then I kind of give a little shiver, and I'm like, what's up with you, Food Network? I'm Guy Fieri. I'm about making real food for real people. And so then I walk and I talk, and I go to my sushi bar, and I roll up some sushi we called gringo sushi, and I do this whole thing. Well, 3 days later, I get a call. And I don't believe it's the Food Network, so I'm just complete. It's 10 at night. I'm getting the call that they want to talk to me, and I'm just blah, blah, blah. And like, Mr. Ferrari. So now I know it's not one of my buddies, and like they would have got Fieri right. And I'm like, is this really the Food Network? Like, we have a contract that's arriving on your door tomorrow morning. I'm like, oh my God. So anyhow, that was kind of what started it. And I went there, and, it's that old adage, you sing like nobody's listening, dance like nobody's watching, or go, just throw it to the wind. Just go big or go home has always been my motto. So I went there, and I ended up winning, and, well, the rest is kind of a hot mess.
And yeah. And Guy,
you're missing your shots, by the way. You've asked so many. I told you, every question you ask,
some shots.
you have to take a shot.
I want to stay on target here.
Yeah, what's up?
I think you said shot.
Oh. Yeah, what do you think? Don't you think Dave has to take his shot to catch up? Come on.
Okay.
Shot.
Okay. I'll
never be invited again, I swear to God.
Please don't show this to Marvin. I'm going to pass this to the man who owns it, who needs to do one too. We got to talk more about cigars, and you are, of course, much more than just the star of Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. You are one of the 2 men behind the cigar I'm smoking now, and the cigar you're smoking, a knuckle sandwich. I think we got to bring up your partner.
The legendary. Well, before we bring him up, let me introduce how I met him. So I wanted to make cigars forever. And my agents told me, your sister died of cancer and smoking. And I said, hang on, you guys are so uneducated about cigars. This is not the kind of cancer that my sister died of. She died, unfortunately, of melanoma. But she had cancer as a child. and then lived 34 years cancer-free, vegetarian, no drinking, massage therapist. I mean, healthy as you could be. But the Wilms tumor that she had as a child turned into melanoma, and that there was just no win in that situation. But I said, what cigar smoking does and the way it unifies people and the way it brings people together, I said, I think far outweighs any type of question of whether or not it's good or bad for you. I really believe that the unity and the family and the unique people that we have in the audience today will all attest to the fact that this is a unifier of people, of cultures, of countries, and the craftsmanship. I mean, that's one of the things I love the most about it. And so finally, I had this euphoric moment. I got my star on the Walk of Fame in Hollywood, which no question how that happened. I'm still bewildered. But I'm standing there and Foreigner's playing. They said, where would you like to have your luncheon? I said, my luncheon? They said, well, when you get your star, you get to have a luncheon. I said, I'm Guy Fieri. I don't have luncheons. I'm not a luncheon guy. I said, I want to have 1,000 of my fans, and I want to throw a kegger in a parking lot, and I want Motley Crue to play. And they're like, that's not what happens when you get your star. So we ended up with 700 of my friends, and Foreigner played. So Foreigner plays. I'm smoking a Hoyo de Monterey double Corona, my favorite, legal cigar. And I'm smoking it, and I've got my nephew on one arm and my oldest son, Hunter, on the other. And it's standing in the rain, Jukebox Hero, and it's standing in the rain. It just starts to drizzle, and I'm having this moment. I'm not kidding. It was out of body. It was the craziest thing in the world. And the song ended, and the band rapped, and my agents came over, and my manager comes over, and we're standing there talking. They said, so what do you want to do next? What's it going to be? You want to do movies? You want to do whatever? And I said, I just want, and they looked at each other, and they go, the cigar thing, right? It's the cigar thing. And I said, yes, the cigar thing. I want to make my own cigars. And like, I think you're big enough now that you'll be able to surpass the negativity that you'll get from it. So I called every cigar person that I knew, and I said, I want to make my own cigars. And I said, find me who is the cigar guru, like who's the person. Don't get me wrong, I love Arturo Fuente. I love all the big brands. I am a humongous fan of everybody that has paved the way for all the small tobacconists that have started to emerge through this industry. But I said, find me the one that really has that passion. So I get a call from a guy I didn't even know, a guy named Tim. And he calls me and he says, I heard you're looking for someone to make a cigar. I have a name. And his name's Erik Espinosa. I said, okay, well, put me in touch with him. And so I actually talked to his son. And long story short, Erik shows up to the South Beach Food and Wine Festival, and he kind of walks in. Anybody know Erik Espinosa? You ever met him? Okay. It's Erik Espinosa. So Erik comes walking into the Lowe's Hotel, and he has a goodie bag of stuff, which every time I see him, he always brings me a bundle of stuff, like he's smuggling something. And he sits down, and he throws me a cigar, he throws me a cutter, and he throws me a lighter. And I don't smoke Connecticut's. Back then I didn't. And he throws me Laranja, which is actually, to this day, still one of my all-time favorite cigars. And I take the cutter, and I throw the cutter back at him. And he looks at me, and I go, I don't cut. I said, I bite. I take the cap off. You passed the first test. And he says, we talk about 20 minutes, half hour. And he says, I just want to be honest. I want to be honest with you. I don't want to make a celebrity cigar. I said, good, because I don't want to make a celebrity cigar either. I said, that's the worst thing in the world. I don't want to put my name on this. I just want to make badass cigars. Big palate, big flavor, big profile. I want to make great cigars that are affordable, that can reach my redneck, blue-collar community. And he said, I think we can do something. 3 years later, 2.5 years later, we came out with the first knuckle sandwich cigar. So ladies and gentlemen, my hero, my Obi-Wan Kenobi of cigars, the one and only Erik Espinosa.
Thank you, guys.
We didn't mean for you to come up. We just were introducing you.
It's part of the plan.
Sit in the shitty chair. Goodbye.
I've never gone solo. What the fuck? Are there people out there?
Eric, can we see you? Oh, there you are. You're still here.
I chose the right chair.
Congratulations for not trying to cuss. I know it's been tough for you.
Dude, it's between the two of us. I'm telling you, we're going to pay the price.
Eric, why don't you tell us all what it was like to work with Guy right at the beginning? What'd you think?
It was
Thanks
the
for
worst
coming,
day of my
everybody.
life.
It's really been nice having you. Really a pleasure. Good luck on this.
So I got to finish telling that story. When we met, and I told them straight out, look, and no disrespect to anybody, there's a lot of people have tried it and it doesn't work. And then he looks at me, he says, well, apparently I did my research on you, but you didn't do your research on me. And I said, okay, fair enough, explain it. And he goes, look, bro, I'm a big promoter. Everything I do it the right way, it's promote, and I really love cigars. And by him giving me the cutter, listen, I'm old school, I'm Cuban. I've never used a cutter in my life. That's why I don't smoke torpedoes. I bite the cigars, always have. I chew my cigars. My dad, 89 years old, smokes 10 cigars a day, and it looks like a paintbrush. He chews it so much, and I'm the same way. I mean, I have to cut cigars when I get on the plane to chew it, to hide it, because they don't allow you not even to chew a cigar in the plane. So I always put my head on, in the window, and I'm chewing the cigar. And then we talked about how can we make this work. And I said, look, you travel the whole country. You're doing what you do. You're filming diners, drive-in dives. Can we do events while you're in that town? That's not too far. I don't know how much time you have, but maybe an hour and a half. He said, absolutely. Can you come to the trade show? Absolutely. And I said, last thing, if I have to get an attorney for this, I'm not doing it. And he looks at me. I don't do anything without an attorney. I said, well, you will now. He looks at me, and our deal is with a handshake, guys. Seriously.
Still to this day.
To this day,
there's no paperwork. It's a handshake.
It's with
deal.
a handshake, and we're very similar in a lot of things. Seriously.
That's great. That's great.
And for me, and for us, I can tell you this right now. He's definitely no longer a celebrity in the cigar world. He's one of us. How many people do you know? That he does the same thing that we do. Travels the country, does events, comes to the PCA like what we all do. I mean, most of you guys have a retail shop and don't shop what we do, but the reps out there, they travel, and he's no different, And the reason why it's one of the hottest selling brands in the country, the cigar is great, but there's a lot of great cigars out there, and people smoke cigars of who they like.
True.
Okay, and the man's been nothing but aces. He busts his, can I say balls?
But I bust my basketballs.
And he works hard, and and I gave him my word. I told him we're gonna push the heck of the cigars, and here he is. Listen, this man's a busy man, and he's in New Orleans with us. How many people can say that as a celebrity? Seriously.
I think he's one of the busiest guys I know, and he's taken, first of all, time to be here right now with all of us, which is fantastic, but also the time you're mentioning to do all these events. And these are a lot of events that you're talking about, right?
He's done, between last year and this year, over, I would say, 20 events in the country.
What the fudge?
22.
20. So my son was on spring break in Florida last week. We have a house in South Beach.
You're going to go there, huh?
So I'll do whatever, Eric. The one deal that on the handshake was I will do whatever you want me to do. If you ask, the one I listen to is Jack. Jack runs a show. Jack, where are you? Wave your hand right there. Jack's our boss. Okay, give Jack more applause than that if you ever want a free
Jack
cigar.
Turani, everybody.
So Jack and Dylan are my counterparts that help me, work through this guy's crazy schedule. He works harder than anybody I know. But the thing is I shoot Triple D all over the country 26 times a year. And
26, sorry. 26 events.
No, there's more than that. So I happen to be at my house in Palm Beach and in Florida, And he says, hey, I got this event I want you to come do. It's going to be great. We're going to have a real blast. All he did was drag me 2 hours from my house to meet 40 of his good friends and hang out. So, I mean, don't make it like I'm going to every big, gigantic... No, I'm just busting his ball because we know this is a little bit of a joke. But the thing is I told him that was part of the deal. I said, I won't be this half-ass buddy that's not going to be there, and I will make sure that I show up and I participate. And as I said, I really did. I was in New York this morning doing a great PSA for Tunnel to Towers, and I promised that I would be here for this event, not to Erik so much, but I told Dave, because Dave and I have a very special friendship that I want to talk about in just a second. But yeah, Erik asked, will you be there? And I said, buddy, I love this. I want to sit at the table and listen to somebody. I've got to follow the governor. That was awesome. I want to be at the table and talk about it and hear what you smoke and why you smoke it and how you smoke it and where you smoke it, because this right here is still probably one of the only things that I get to do in my life where I get to turn off the TV and turn off the kitchen and turn off all the media and just be Guy. And that's what we do when we smoke cigars, right? That's it.
The cigar, of course, is called Knuckle Sandwich. The name Guy Fieri doesn't appear anywhere on the cigar or on the pack. Was that part of the plan from the beginning? Was that ever part of the discussion to have your name on this cigar, Guy?
Never. Didn't want it, don't want it, won't ever do it. The one thing we do, make a little funny haha on the bottom of the box, which I didn't even know because it's Espinosa being the great smart aleck that he is. Huh? How was that? Saved myself?
Nice and clean, nice and clean. Very good.
He put made in Flavortown. Flavortown's our brand, our mystical place where all the great food comes from. And Erik put that on the back. We play little games once in a while about how we do things. And but that was the deal, and we still to this day. I mean, I fought him even having my picture up there with it because I said, if I'm going to put my picture up, then we're going to put your picture up. I'm the sous chef to him. I mean, he is truly the cigar aficionado in my life and the way we do things. And he does. You guys do not know the torture I go through. When we make a new cigar, he sends me 15 varieties of the cigar, 3 each, with a notepad. Taste them, tell me what you think, and then let's get together for a meeting. Jesus. I don't have time to do that. By the time I'm smoking them, I'm 1 bottle of tequila into it. You know, I don't, develop all the flavor profiles that you do, Erik. But really, believe it or not, he listens to my notes, and we come to an agreement on what the next cigar is going to be. For instance, the Puro, which we're all smoking right now. And I guess I give myself a little more credit in my palate than I don't have his palate, but we come to an agreement on what the cigar is going to be. And that's been the partnership from day one. He won't make a cigar that I don't taste and I don't sign off on.
What did your team think when you said, hey, we're doing this cigar thing, my name's not going to be on it, and by the way, there's not going to be a contract and no lawyers?
Well, the big boss that runs Knuckle Sandwich, my COO, Reed Strathern's here, and he, from day one, said, a handshake deal? We don't do handshake deals. Bullshit. Your name, your brand, this stuff, we're not going to do that. I said, I don't care. It's just what I want to do. I'm going to do what I want to do. And still to this day, as we have our, quarterly meetings and we talk about companies that we have and things that are succeeding, he'll always weigh in and go, and to follow up, the Knuckle Sandwich cigar brand continues to rise meteorically. It's going to the next level, and what we're coming out with. And so now, and he's a big cigar smoker, but he wanted to even say, he says, this brotherhood, this friendship, this partnership that Erik and I and the Espinosa family have is something that is, I think, in a lot of businesses not seen anymore.
If you had to describe what makes Knuckle Sandwich special, what's the house style of Knuckle Sandwich? If I said to you, I'm new to the cigar market, I've never smoked one of these things before, what do I get from a Knuckle Sandwich? What am I looking for here?
Well, that's why we have a Connecticut, which is mild, but I would say mild to medium with a lot of flavor. Listen, I'm not a big Connecticut smoker myself, but I wanted to make something that had a lot of flavor. So, and catered to the people who smoke mild. And then we did the Habano. I'm a big Habano guy. I love the spiciness. So we have a little variety. And now what you guys are smoking is the brand new one, is the Puro. It's one of the first cigars. It's all Nicaraguan. It has an Oscuro Habano wrapper. We tried it, and it is fantastic. What do you guys think? But I do got to go back to that story, if you guys don't mind, when he was saying that I sent him a bunch of cigars. So when we met in the South Beach.
You didn't let them clap enough for the Puro. I mean, what do you think of that? I mean, honestly, I think it's one of the best we've ever made. Especially to be a Puro, all out of Nicaragua. That's a big deal. That's a brave move on our part, I think.
So I'm a firm believer at 58 years old. You know, I listen to my son a lot because I don't know what's in. I don't know, who's the hottest rapper, singer, or whatever. So I listen to him a lot. And then after our meeting, I went back and I spoke to my son and my team, and my son looks at me. He says, "Dad, that guy's got to have an incredible palate. He tries all these different foods and stuff like that, And did he want to get involved in making the cigars?" He says, "Absolutely." So we were going to go to Nicaragua, but COVID hit about 3 days after. We met on a Saturday, and I think on Tuesday, the country shut down. So I went to Nicaragua and brought back it was like 10 cigars, and I take down notes. I don't remember how many cigars, and he wrote down and everything. And after he smoked them all, I swear this is a God honest true story. He says, "Okay," I go, "Guy, what number did you like the best?" He said 7. And I said, "What number did you say?" He said 7. "Why'd you pick 7? He said, "That's the one I like the best." I said, "That's the one we chose." We chose 7. So I said, "Listen, this is great. I mean, we're on the same page." I said, "Let's rock and roll. Let's do the 7." And it took a while because, COVID and all that. So I think it was a couple years later that we were able to come out with the cigars, the production and all that. And it's been around already for about 3.5 years, and it's killing it out there, as you guys know. And it's all tribute to this guy, man. I mean, this guy's awesome, and I want to tell you this. Outside of us being a business partner, we've become friends. We hang out a lot. And I got to say a story that you don't even know, but I go to his birthday party in Santa Rosa. And I'm good friends with Jonathan Drew. But I get a lot of yo's from Jonathan. He'll text me, "Yo," and I text, "What's up, John?" And then 2 months later, I get another yo and another yo and another yo. So for whatever reason, he introduced me to his friends that were at his birthday party. And Jonathan calls me on FaceTime. And I said, "What's up, John?" But after he introduced me to his friends, one guy was Lance Armstrong. The other 2 guys, I didn't know who they were. But I'm hearing his conversation. I said, "John, you're making a cigar for Metallica, right?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "What's the drummer? Is the drummer's name Lars?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm standing next to the guy." He says, "I've never met him." I go, "I swear to God, bro, is this him?" Because I didn't know who he was. And the other guy was the drummer for Rage Against the Machine.
It was Lars from Metallica.
Metallica, yeah.
Let me pick up what he's dropping. There you go.
What band did I say? So, and then Jonathan was amazed that I met him before he did. You know what I'm saying? But that's the story.
All right, I don't know what our timeline is because I know they're going to kick us off stage. I want to tell you a little story about me and Cigar Aficionado. So, being a subscriber, being a lover of cigars, and always looking at this future of, what I want to do and what I want to be around, it had nothing to do with the business. Even before, I had multiple humidors, small ones that I'd made, and poor humidification. I think they were good, but now that I learned about it from Erik. But my publicist would always say to me, "What magazine do you want to be in?" I was in Playboy, and I did People, and I've done some great magazine art, great articles, great covers. I said, I just really want to be in Cigar Aficionado. And they would come back to me every year as we had our annual meeting, and they'd say, "Well, they don't want to interview you." I'm like, "God, that sucks." I'm really bummed. And I said, "Why?" And they said, "Well, because it's athletes and actors. And I'm not either one." And I said, "Well, but I have a cable television show." And like, "Well, they're not interested." So as time went on, and then of course we scored great on our first cigar on our Habano, and I got a call and they said, we'd love to, we want to, I don't think love was in the word. They would like to interview Guy. And my publicist, they came back and they said, well, they're not going to give you the cover and they're not going to, you're just going to get an interview. I said, great, I'll take it. They said, well, you should really hold out. You get covers of magazines. You should, I said, I don't care, I'll take it. And Reed, my manager, said, you want this more than you wanted any interview you've ever had. Take it. I said, great, let's do this. So we flew to New York. We don't do a lot of business in New York. We live on the West Coast. And I got a chance to meet Dave. And so we come in, no expectation. It was just great to meet Dave. I know who Dave is. I read the magazine. And so we have this great hang, and Jim Wright, who was the photographer, who's actually now a great friend and does a lot of work, shoots a lot of my stuff now. And we have this great hang, and it was supposed to be, I think, an hour and a half, and it was 4 hours. It was a 4-hour interview. I think we overran our lease of the rent of this building we had in New York. We drank tequila, we smoked cigars, and it was one of the most, for me, as a cigar fan, I was a fan of him, and I got a chance to tell him my story and tell him about my Gramps and Tiparillos and smoking Hoyo de Monterey Excaliburs and saving my money to make my first humidor. And he listened to my whole blah, 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 blah. And we shook hands and said goodbye, and he said this was way more than, I think you said way more than you'd expected. And that was it. And it was just the great moment. I was going to finally get some piece about me in Cigar Aficionado.
And now Dave drinks tequila.
Yeah. So fast forward, and you want to take over or you want me to take over?
You can keep on going. You're telling this story great.
So I'm on a road trip with my family. We shoot a show every year called Guy's Family Road Trips. All my friends and family, all my buddies, we all have RVs. We travel across one part of the country or another, and of course smoke cigars the entire time. And I get a phone call, and I'm in the middle of filming a scene. And Espinosa calls me and says, Dave is trying to reach you. He's calling you in a minute. And I said, oh God, my damn article's getting cut. I'm getting the hook. And he says, Dave's going to call you. So I said, all right, cut the scene. Or actually, I was still in the scene. Dave calls, and I'm like, Hunter, you manage this thing. Hey, Guy, what's going on? Hey, Dave, what's going on? He goes, hey, you got a second? Oh, yeah, I'm totally free. I got like 9 cameras on me. I'm like, yeah, got every minute you need, Dave. Go right ahead. What's on your mind? He says, so I wrote the article about you. And he said, it's really way more, I'm going to paraphrase what he said, or at least what I made up in my mind. This is my story about how much Dave loves me. And he said, I took your article to Marv. Oh, this is definitely getting the axe. Because this was the guy that said, you don't get to be in the magazine. And I'll let him tell you what Marv said.
We put him on the cover. I wanted him on the cover really bad. I had to push Marvin a little bit, which is hard to do. Marvin Shanken, the owner of Cigar Aficionado, who controls every cover we do. He reads every word that goes in the magazine. It's his baby. He created it in 1992, and every person that goes on his cover is somebody that he says, okay, that's the cover. And it's not always easy to push Marvin into doing a cover he's not necessarily into doing.
This is being recorded, Dave.
Hey. No, Marvin knows this story, and we told Guy he was going to be on the cover. And I think he was pretty happy about it. And it worked out great for us, one of the best covers we've ever done.
So much so, when I got the cover, I'm not kidding you, this is the crescendo. This is one of the most important things that's ever happened in my career. It was so important, and matter of fact, for my dad to see it, which was pretty monumental moment. You have those milestones that you have before you lose your parent. But it was such a monumental moment. I took the cover and took it to an artist and had it created in bronze. And I've had the whole cover made in bronze, and there's a gigantic, my wife doesn't let me keep a lot of my stuff in the house. I have to put it in the ranch. And there's a bronze cover of the Cigar Aficionado cover of the magazine hanging in my house. So.
As far as I know, that's the only time that's ever happened with someone being undercover. And then Guy comes up to New York, not at some point after that, and has a face-to-face with Marvin. which is going
Yeah,
to be
for
about...
a 40 for I get a 45-minute luncheon invite to have lunch with Marv. 45 minutes. Okay, I don't know your schedules, but mine is hour here, 15-minute travel, hour here, 20-minute, hour here. You know, you do these kind of things. So I sit down with Marv Schenken for lunch. It's me, Dave, and Marv. I don't know who you've had lunch with, that you've sat there. I'm a pretty good, I mean, I can talk pretty good. This was me. Marv walked me through 15 different humidors that were owned by every celebrity you've ever met. JFK, Churchill, you name it, he had the humidor. And I'm just in awe. And then we get into a variety of conversations, and Marv and Dave have a very interesting friendship. And at 3.5 hours later, I have blown every appointment I have in New York. I mean, I've got publicists that are pissed off beyond pissed. And like, you've got to leave. You've got to go. Get him out of there. Let's go. I'm like, I don't give two shits what was coming up. I'm staying here as long as he will talk to me. I'm staying here. And we had the greatest luncheon. And then Marv walks us into humidors, and we see cigars, and we talk about collections, and we look at the library, and it was just, in the cigar world, it was like a little kid going to effing Disneyland. It really was.
Long story short, Marvin falls in love with Guy falls in love with Marvin. I'm not even there at this point. It's like the two of them having court, and end of story. Marvin and I are exceptionally happy to have you on the cover of Cigar Aficionado. Is this guy a cigar aficionado or what?
One of the greatest moments of my life. I still, to this day, I get sweaty palms even talking about it. And Marv gave me a cigar that day, and he told me, smoke it right now. So we talked about other things, and I pocketed that thing. And it sits in my humidor in a glass case right there at the top of it, and it says, do not touch, because I know my kids will eventually get my collection. It says, do not touch, gift from Marv Schenken, do not smoke.
Guy did not force Marvin to do shots of Santo Tequila, but other than that...
But you, I do, so pass it over there, Espinosa.
No, Eric, you've got to do a shot of that. Come on, Eric's got to do a shot. With that, I think we are at the end of our time. All right, I'll do the shot. I'll do it to PCA, to Guy Fieri, and to Erik Espinosa.
I want to thank PCA for putting this together, Dave, everybody. Across the street, we're doing the event. All right, we're gonna have some great food. All right, so you guys, we'll see you guys over there.
Can I say just one thing before this ends? The friendship and the brotherhood and sisterhood and the unity that comes together with cigars. I encourage you to be the ambassador to enjoying cigars. I started my statement off saying friends that don't like cigars usually smoke shitty cigars. But the reality of it is we know how precious this is, and we know how it unifies people. And it slows a lot of us down. It makes us mellow for a second. You take that cigar, you know, I'm going to appreciate this for an hour. I'm going to get off my phone. I'm just going to chat with my friends. I'm just going to have some downtime. This right here is probably one of the best. I think food is a great amalgamator of people, but I think cigars are even a better one. So thank you so much, PCA. You're doing a great job in keeping people together. This is an honor and a privilege to be here.